Recording is enabled, folks.
Okay.
Cool.
Generating stream.
Zoom.us has new window. Oh yeah, I should probably do that too.
What?
Crap, carbonation. Oh well.
Don't have another outtake, Jason.
I will mute with Zoom this time. No, that was hilarious though. I was just so casual about it. Just like... In fact, am I in the Zoom window? Let's see. No, I'm not. No, I am.
Hey, Michael, your video is cutting your forehead off.
I'm aware. I'm close to my computer so I can read it.
Oh, no, that wasn't the problem. That's fine. But
And now I should sound better because I just turned on original sound.
cool.
All right. Now...
You know, that's kind of a shame that the, well, it wouldn't really work all that well anyway. I was going to say it's kind of a shame that this microphone thing wouldn't really work with the headset adapter with the AirPods Max.
Okay. About to send a link on Twitter.
Okay.
And then I will fix my...
Just loving that my allergies start to act up right before a podcast.
I love
know
that.
mine are too.
I love that
Yeah.
I forgot to sign back into Twitter on this Mac after I changed my password.
Do you need me to put something out there real quick?
I got it.
Okay.
I love it. It totally does, Lauren. It totally sounds like you're sitting in a car.
Should I move? I can real quick.
No, it's fine. It's just...
Are
you
it's,
sure?
I'm just imagining you in just like the passenger seat or just hanging out in the back seat with your computer beside you.
Hey, Jason, just letting you know when you talk loud like that, you distort.
Oh, that's weird. I wonder if Zoom's making me loud or something.
Yeah, it
Louder
seems
than I
like
should
it.
be. Huh.
I might just try my odds in my bedroom for the next podcast and see what happens.
That's fine. It's just my oh, did I distort again?
Yeah.
A little bit.
What the hell? Let me come in on my iPhone real quick. See what I sound like.
And we are live, I think, right?
Yep.
All right. Well,
Let's see.
Recording stopped. Please wait. The meeting host will let you in soon.
I'm glad I could hear your voiceover because I would not have known to do that.
I know. Oh, wait, I can hear myself.
Yeah, he's on speaker on his phone.
Yeah. I'm trying to see what I sound like on Zoom. Test?
Mm,
I
yeah.
Oh, yep, I hear the distortion
Oh,
a
yeah.
little bit.
Yep.
Okay. All right, fine. I'll sound like Eeyore for the whole show. Problem solved.
Oh, boy. This could be an interesting
anyway.
show.
All right.
But yeah, you're fine, Lauren. It's just my mental ideas funny.
There we go. Just fix my camera view. And I guess since I'm the only one here, I might as well get close to the screen as usual. There we go.
We've got Daniel Wising on stream.
Excellent. Welcome, folks.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to the stream. We are about to get started, so hope you enjoy. Everybody ready to get going?
Yeah, I just got distracted because Zoom was just randomly like, Jason Earls just left the meeting. I was like, no, I didn't. And then I was like, oh, right, my phone.
You're the other you.
That took it forever to...
It's kind of neat that it will tell you, or that it lets you, unlike Discord, where, you can't have multiple of yourself in the meeting or in the room. It's kind of neat that Zoom lets you have multiple people.
I know, because sometimes the only way to get a true sense of what's going on is hearing it yourself, so...
Mm-hmm. I love these headphones, but they make my ears itch so much. Ugh.
So, Michael, what's your scratch for the month?
Ah!
Or for the show?
Wow.
Wow. Well, welcome people in chat. Wow.
Well,
Wow.
I know what you're picking, and since okay, this is just
Yeah, no.
I'm going away.
Oh, well, you literally went away.
I know I did.
Oh, I was like, somebody else has said, welcome podcast people. So, yeah.
Welcome to our pre-show, y'all.
Right?
Yeah.
Where sometimes things sound much better in your head than they do when you actually say them.
Right. As usual.
Yep.
It's kind of a usual thing for us, though. And the cool thing is, if you're tuning in now, you get to hear all this craziness, but also, this is all on YouTube for all time for people to watch later.
Yep.
Yep, pretty much.
Jason, how are my levels?
I think they will be okay. I think you're slightly louder than me, but since I'm distorting when I talk loud, it's...
Well, and we have the awesome power of
and we
Alphonic
have
to...
Oh,
Yeah,
crap, I
Alphonic
need
is
to make
awesome.
my account for that.
And actually, somebody on one of the shows should pick Alphonic because that thing's neat.
Oh, well, that could
I
be
should
better
have
than-
picked that.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go, Taylor.
I was going to say, you know what,
Because
maybe I
you
should
actually
pick
used
that.
it for your video.
I did. I used it for my podcast and video.
Cool.
And I sounded like awesome.
Like awesome.
I mean, I got compliments. They're like, oh, you don't sound quiet, or you don't have your background noise. Where'd that go?
Oh, that's cool.
Did your fridge die?
I actually did get that as a comment. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Michael, you just distorted.
Not for
Yeah,
me. You
bad.
didn't. I don't think.
Oh, it sounded like, yeah, no, I literally got weird comments like, hey, where's your fridge?
Wow.
It's like, wow, guys.
Living on the fridge. Anyway.
All right,
Anyways.
so we don't have any major news except for Epic and Apple.
Yeah, which is basically that it's still happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe we could speculate a little bit about what that could maybe mean, unless we just want to... Like, how do we want to handle that?
I think we should just mention it and then
Yeah.
kind of go into the main topic. This is going to be a no ad day. It's going to be because I kind of feel like we need to dedicate a lot of time to talk about this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Which I will hand off to you to introduce whenever we get to that point, since it's your idea.
I'm so scared. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
Crap, they got recorded.
Yeah, I got
Yeah, I
recorded.
did.
Outtake time.
No, it's not
Now,
during the show. We're good.
You know what? No, but it will be cut because now we're going to insert that in all the different places where that would be very applicable.
Yeah.
I still think we also need to record a a full iACast, get like 5 or 6 or 7 of us on Zoom or Team Talk or somewhere where it's really good audio, and have everybody at the same, like, count in 1, 2, 3, and everybody say, "Shut up, Jason."
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That would be awesome. All right. Are y'all ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, my cable's doing stupid stuff. Okay, there we go.
Always something, right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
is always something. You think you're ready, and then there's like 4 little things, and they eventually add up, and then you're like, oh, man.
Or we have those shows where we laugh so much that we think we're ready and then not.
We're never ready. Yeah.
Right.
We're going to see how this goes.
All right. Part of me is paranoid, and I just want to make sure we're recording.
Zoom said we were.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you're on YouTube, so
We are
anything else.
recording.
We have ways of getting it, even if it's
I was
not.
going to say, yeah.
All right, we're good. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 159 of the iACast. All right, with me today, we have a good panel for our discussion, and I think this is going to be one of the more interesting discussions that we're going to have on the show, and it's something that has to come up occasionally. But, to talk about all these things, we have Jason Earls,
Hello, everyone.
Taylor Arndt,
Hello, everyone.
and a new voice to the show. She's been on some of our Unbox cast, but the first actual iACast, Lauren Flinner.
Hello, everyone.
All right. So today's topic, is going to be kind of long, so we have very little news to talk about, but it appears that the fight between Apple and Epic Games is still on. Both sides believe that they are, still right in the whole thing, but the lawsuits are still going to go forward. So we will see, what happens. But again, I still think Apple is mostly in the right on this one.
I think Apple, in a lot of ways, is definitely in the right as well. But, I mean, regardless of what happens, I think the case is slated to take, the trial was supposed to be like a 3-week trial. So we've got 2 more weeks. I think this is just the first week. So we have 2 more weeks to go before we see any verdicts. But either way, I think there are some changes that may be forced, that Apple may be forced to make, even if they win the court battle of the against Epic. There, I can speak. I promise.
But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. But Lauren or Taylor, have you guys been following this?
Yes, I have, actually. And it's been an interesting development for sure. And it's just, like I said, we're just going to have to kind of see what happens, But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting piece of news for sure to follow.
I have not, but I'm sure it will be a very interesting topic to watch pan out.
Oh, it definitely is. All the stuff that we've learned about how Apple and Epic operate. You can find all kinds of stuff if you search on places like The Verge and whatnot. They all have information on what's going on. So
Basically, it's all based on the game Fortnite. Epic wanted to sneak a change into the App Store version of Fortnite where they would add their own V-Bucks, I guess it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to add their own store in Fortnite without, having to use Apple's in-app purchase system and things like that. And they did it. Apple told them, don't do it. They snuck the update in where it wasn't active until they pressed a button, and then it was, and then Apple immediately pulled it from the App Store, and Google followed suit as well. So it's very interesting. Even Google is not cool on this.
yeah, and I know we're trying to keep this topic pretty short because we do have a lot to discuss in the main show, but Epic knew exactly what they were doing. This was pre-planned. They knew they were potentially going to get pulled out of the store because they want to. It's for them. It's about the control that Apple has over the App Store, and they see it as a monopolistic practice, and it's going to potentially be kind of messy, but definitely interesting, regardless of how this plays out.
For sure. So we'll watch the lawsuit, and in a few weeks we may have more to report on this on the show. So it's very interesting because it could mean a difference in the App Store's policies and review guidelines and things like that in the future. So it's something to watch.
Definitely.
All right. So I personally believe this topic is very important, and this actually comes from Jason. So, Jason, why don't you talk about your topic? And I'm curious how you came up with this and how you want to start things off. So go ahead and talk about it.
All right. MIDI, 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 music, 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 sing, sing, sing. No, I'm kidding. So, in all seriousness, though, due to so many people having to be having to work from home during the pandemic, I was thinking, a lot of us have our computers, and they're here for entertainment. They're here for watching stuff on Netflix, browsing the web, doing the occasional FaceTime call to help grandma check her email. And they aren't really set up for working from home. And what may work for entertainment purposes may not work for work purposes. So I was thinking it would be a great idea to do a show on, if you do have to... 3, 2, 1. So I was thinking that it would be a good idea to do a show, if you do have to purchase a computer for yourself to work from home, kind of going over what to look for when purchasing a computer and what it all means and why you should care as a consumer as to what this stuff means. So Michael thought it sounded interesting, so we're doing it.
Sounds perfect.
So, I guess, and I think this is a good way to start this off. What computers? I would like to know what computers people use for work. So, Jason, since you brought this whole thing up, what computers do you use?
Basically, my MacBook Pro. I mean, for the work I do for accessibility, it's been working quite nicely. So.
Okay. Taylor, what is your main device that you use for work?
So I have a Lenovo ThinkPad. It's actually more than like a ThinkPad in a sense. I actually got it from one of my friends new when they were moving out of their old apartment. But it's actually really nice because it's not just the consumer model. It's actually one step above. So it's like the pro model. So it's like a Lenovo ThinkPad something or other. I can't remember the exact name, but it's kind of the next step up. And it works really great for running my business and for entertainment, just kind of a general purpose. I also have a dysfunctional MacBook Pro at the moment, which I am attempting to get fixed, but I have used that in the past for different things, although that one is not as powerful as this Windows system that I have.
Okay, and Lauren, what about you?
So I'm currently running on a MacBook Pro, and then also I use an iPad, which is pretty much what I work off of the most, but for, larger tasks and things like that, I'll use my MacBook.
Excellent. I personally use Macs. I have 2 Macs, and for my regular work from home solution, I have from work, my day job, I have a Dell Latitude. It's kind of the basic computer, nothing major, but it's just a computer that gets the job done. I don't use cut.
Well, we wanted neighbor noise.
Yeah, that's my neighbor
Just
noise.
didn't
And it
get
wasn't me
Taylor's neighbor
this time.
noise.
That is awesome.
Man, that took me back though. Like that took me back to the days of McDonald's, the echoey McDonald's
know,
with
right?
with the play areas and stuff. Man, the little
Oh
kids
my
running
God.
around,
Yeah, they've
fresh
got
off their
kids.
chicken nuggets and milkshakes.
They sound so happy.
They're running down the halls and everything. So
Oh, fun.
Man, wow, it's amazing what sound can do to you.
I
right?
know.
And there they are still.
Yeah, they're still going. And I don't know how much, because the one thing about these apartments is like the walls are thick, but the doors are not.
Right.
Oh.
That was kind of true with our apartment too.
It's funny because like my neighbors' parties, I hear not through the walls, but through mine and their
door.
doors.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Now we have somebody else's dog that's in the mix, so you know.
Oh no. This could be an interesting show, y'all.
Right.
It could be.
They don't usually take long. So
So today our topic is children on candy. And why you should monitor their sugar intake.
And the joys of living in an apartment when you're working from home.
that could be a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Equipment you could use to speak on and stuff and
Yeah.
and all that. But
That's
would be
actually not a
cool.
bad idea.
well, you guys already know my answer.
Like your microphone.
Right.
Well, actually, honestly, like if I had the AirPods Max, I'd probably just use those depending on how they worked with my Mac audio wise.
They're still running down the halls.
Yep.
Oh man. Well.
Because I mean, if all you're doing is like Zoom calls and stuff.
Yeah. We're gonna try again.
All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. So yeah, for my work from home computer, like my day job computer, I use a Dell Latitude. It's kind of just a very basic machine, but it gets the job done. I don't use assistive technology on it beyond Windows Magnifier, so it is what it is. It does what it needs to do. So, but for app development, obviously I use Macs, and funny thing is my entertainment machine is actually a Windows computer. So I mainly stick on the Macs whenever I'm working, for myself, and I use what I'm given, at my day job to do my day job. So, yeah. So, so Jason, where would you like to go next? What questions would you like to give the panel on this topic?
Well, if we're talking about computers and stuff, do we want to go ahead and maybe talk about? Do we want to do terminology first?
Let's talk about brands. Like what brands are good.
There
for
we go.
what? There's a lot of different computer brands out there, and some are better for some things than others. For instance, Dell is my least favorite brand out there, but they make good work performance computers, like the Precision line. If you're looking for something, for AT, the Precision line is going to be their tanks, and it's just going to hold up. But Lenovo is really good too. Like you have Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really great. Yeah.
And the ThinkPad line, I believe, came from IBM. So
Yeah, they did, actually.
those are going to be great machines.
They are.
Asus is also a decent brand nowadays.
Well, they've always been a good brand. They've been really good for gaming, but they're really good. The one I would always tell people to stay away from, I've never had good luck with, is Acer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My aunt had an Acer laptop, and I believe she had gone through, 2 of them, I think? Luckily, it was under warranty when she did it, but, yeah, it was not a very reliable machine.
Yeah. Another one I'd stay away from is HP.
I've actually had good luck with HP.
Really?
I was about to say they're not terrible. They're pretty
I've
good.
had the worst luck with them.
It depends on the model. They have several different lines of computers, kind of like Dell.
Right, the cheaper ones. Yeah, the consumer models of HP I've had trouble with.
Yeah.
I had a
like-
Presario. It was great.
I've never really used the Presario models, but just that brand name, like that model, takes me back a long time. I remember those.
Oh,
from a long time
compact?
ago. Yep.
Yeah, mine actually was back in 2009. I think it still said compact, but it was HP at that point.
You know
Basically.
that Compact's headquarters was in Houston.
Were they? Interesting.
We one time going to Austin whenever I was very young. We went by the Compact headquarters was off the road, so it was really neat getting to see that.
Huh.
So, HP, they make pretty good machines.
Their
as long
Spectre
as you
line
get,
seems to be
the
pretty
Spectre
nice.
line is really the best, and they also make some of the best printers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the one that I had was like the Pavilion or something, and that's the one that I wouldn't really recommend.
I think that's the cheapest.
Yeah, that's why we got it for like $300 at Costco or something.
I think my girlfriend still has an HP Pavilion from like 2008 or 6.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And now she has an Asus ZenBook that she uses.
Those
Which-
are nice machines.
Yeah,
And it
they are.
almost feels like a Mac. Like, that's insane.
Well, a lot of like the Razer computers, that's a little bit past the scope of this podcast. But Razer computers are very much, they look very much like Macs.
Apple has just... They've spoiled me with their aluminum cases.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even just that, but that kind of a wedge shape or that
Yeah.
unibody kind of design is very popular, and everybody tries to mimic that.
Right. And since I mentioned Apple, of course, everybody knows Apple's lineup: the MacBook Pro, the Air, the iMac, the iPad.
And obviously those are pretty good.
Right.
Right. It's funny because we're like, oh, we just assume the Apple stuff is pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I guess one of the biggest questions I have is, Lauren, what do you do on your iPad? Like, how do you make that work for you through productivity? Whereas a lot of people don't think about using the iPad as a computer.
Or they try and fail.
Yeah, I mean, I love the iPad for most of my workflow, actually. I've been going to school for a while now, trying to get my associates in computer science, and a lot of the classwork, not so much coding on the iPad, but a lot of the assignments worked perfectly on the iPad. And so then I started kind of transitioning over to, more web design and more things like that. And I use WordPress for a lot of my web design and things like that. And I love the spatial aspect that the iPad gives. I mean, really, the only thing that I can't do on the iPad is a lot of the coding stuff, and apparently that's, it's gonna make an appearance pretty soon, hopefully. So, yeah.
Yep. And Jason, you do a lot of audio editing. You do all that on the Mac, and I guess with the M1, has that changed your workflow?
I mean, if by changing your workflow you mean sped it up to the point at which I can't stop talking about it, then yes. No, like I edit, when I do edits for our shows, I edit them in Audacity, which for those of you guys who may not know, Audacity is a open source cross-platform audio editing software. It also allows you to do multi-track and stuff. But I use Audacity, and even running under Rosetta, which is Apple's, you could sort of think of Rosetta, if Intel and M1 were speaking different languages, Rosetta could sort of maybe be thought of as a translation software, so that the M1 CPU understands how to run the software that is designed for Intel CPUs, so they can speak the same language and run.
I like to think of it as gasoline.
I don't know.
Oh.
I feel like it's more of a translator. Well, maybe. I don't know.
It's not. Well, the differences between the two processors, they're think of one as being regular gas, one's being diesel, and one usually does not work for the other. And so there is, stuff in there, that on the Mac that makes it to where both types of fuel could be used in the same car.
Yeah, I think both analogies work.
But the thing is that we're seeing so many processors, and we'll talk about processors in just. But it's just nice that we have options, right?
Right.
We're starting to see a really big change in computing where, you could get your work done on a Windows computer or a Mac or an iPad, and you don't have a lot to worry about. One that we haven't mentioned though that I really think is very important for mentioning is the Surface line.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Those
yeah.
machines are fantastic for getting work done, and I think the Surface laptop is kind of that average sweet spot between the Surface Book and the Surface Pro if you're looking for more sit down at a desk, not as mobile of a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the keyboard area is more fabric than anything, which is weird on a laptop, but
Yeah.
Well,
kind of like a type cover. But
I thought you could get the keyboard customized, like the
Now you
material of the
can.
keyboard customized. Can you now?
now you can. It used to be just where it had that type cover feel, like on the Surface Pro.
Yeah, that would be odd.
But yeah, they have good specs, and I think I saw that they may even have discrete graphics cards now.
Oh wow.
I think I saw that too.
So that might make them even better of an option. And they have touchscreens, unlike the Macs. So.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's really interesting. The different brands, and it's all personal preference. If you want, the cheaper, the Dells and the HP are going to be your best bet. Now, again, you're looking at not as good a quality of components or hardware, but it's going to give you that work feel. You're not going to want to say, "Oh, I've got this Dell Latitude 5590 laptop. Let me go fire up some Doom Eternal or some really awesome games on it." No. You look at that computer and you say, that's a work machine.
Yep.
That's all it's going to do, and that's all it will ever do.
It's like the PC. It's like I can make pie charts.
Yeah.
In the Mac versus PC commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the Mac's
But-
making like the schedules and stuff.
And unfortunately, like the Mac, it can do some great graphic stuff. It's great for creating, audio or video or apps. But, when we kind of take it out of the work realm, it flounders because game support is terrible.
Yes. But, I mean, the workflow is great on it for a creator or someone who is... you can pretty much do anything in the creative space on it. Whereas, Windows computers, they're really good for the workspace. And it really just depends on kind of what you're doing and what you're looking for in a computer as
Right.
to where you go.
And especially, I feel like if you're a musician, the Mac is really the way to go, because Windows, for instance, depending on your ports and your availability and stuff, like for me, I have to use my keyboard, my music keyboard. I have to connect it to my computer via Bluetooth, and now that's doubly important since I have the Mac I have. Windows doesn't like to do that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like on my Mac, it's basically just plug and play. On Windows, there's stuff you have to install that I've tried to install and I couldn't get it to work, and it just so.
So let's move on to some of the the things that you need to look at when buying a computer. And this is where we kind of get into the very technical portion. Because as much as we want to say, I just can buy a computer and go, it's not true. You know, even if you're doing office applications and email, all the way up through building apps and editing video, there's always things to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And my first piece of advice is when it comes to RAM, friends don't let friends get 4 gig.
Unless those friends are getting Chromebooks, and we didn't even really talk about Chromebooks.
Well, you know, Chromebooks are usually relegated just to the school space.
Yes.
That's actually becoming less and less true nowadays.
really?
Yeah. I was actually reading an article. I don't remember who wrote it, but they were talking about doing a lot of work on a Chromebook for their work from home, because all they were really doing was stuff on Slack and checking emails and working with documents and spreadsheets and stuff, and they were able to do it pretty successfully.
Yeah, but if you're in a very enterprise environment where you're going to have VPNs and an office environment, they're going to have the Windows computers.
Yeah.
I mean, even developing on a Chromebook, you can do it, but it's going to take a little. Oh yeah, Chrome OS supports. You can install Linux on Chromebook,
Yep.
so you can actually install VS Code, which is Visual Studio Code. You can install Android Studio and build Android apps. You can install all these different developer environments. Now the question is, does your device have enough space to store those
Right.
Yes.
very big programs?
Or how well will it run after being installed?
And if all the Linux dependencies are there to support it, because, you know, that's always fun too. So,
So
yeah.
really, do you want to put in the work?
right.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, I mean, Chromebooks are, you know, Google makes some really good Chromebooks, but, you know, HP and Samsung and other brands make them as well. So, you know, look for what you need. But, you know, on to, you know, what we were talking about with the, you know, memory. You want to stick with something with at least 8 gigs of RAM. I mean, I think that's the most essential
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Because your computer doesn't get, you know, your operating system takes up a lot of that if you only have 4 gigs. And then if you are using Zoom text, or you're using assistive technology, or you're using any blindness related, you know, product, or, you know, any assistive technology, you're going to be using a lot of your memory to make that work.
Definitely true. I mean, I have a PC. It's a Dell Inspiron 3737, and it's got 6 gigs of RAM. It came out, I think, in 2013, and I think one of the only reasons that I'm able to get away with that is mostly because I don't use it for much. Like, I'll use it for Discord occasionally. I'll use it for a little bit of gaming, and by gaming I don't mean, you know, graphic intensive games, obviously, because I can't see them. But I think that's really the only reason I'm able to get away with that.
I mean, I had to run JAWS and Zoom text on a computer with 4 gigs of RAM, and it was not doable. I would not advise it whatsoever.
No. Yeah. It's definitely not easy. Even if, like I said, even if you're doing stuff like virtual machines, trying to run, you know.
Right. Because the
like,
thing
that's
about
not possible.
RAM, it's really how much memory does your computer have to access and run multiple applications and things at the same time, right?
Yep.
And so the more RAM actually stands for random access memory, so it can be accessed at any time by the computer and what it needs. But the more RAM you have, the more apps that you're going to be able to have open at the same time, the more memory your computer is going to have to manage tasks that you're not even going to see that help keep it up and running. So really, I agree with what everybody's been saying. I would get at least 8 gigs of RAM.
RAM's kind of like short-term memory. How much short-term memory does your computer have?
That's
Also, your
I was just saying that's not a bad analogy.
It isn't, yeah.
you load you, not just your applications, but your photos and any files you're playing get loaded there too. So if you're loading a big wireframe 3D model on your computer, it's going to need the RAM to load it and the video memory and some other things. But 8 gigs is the minimum I would say a person needs in today's time to be productive.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do 16, 16's great. I wouldn't say a person really needs any more than 32.
No.
Nope.
For normal compute tasks, I would agree with you. Definitely.
I mean, if you're doing some major 5K, 8K renders of video, you know what you're doing, and you probably don't even need to be listening to this podcast. So, that's kind of the big thing there is knowing what's best. And 8 gigs is pretty good for everybody. The computer that I'm recording on right now is 8 gigs of RAM. It's on an 8 gig of RAM M1, which means it's faster.
Which is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's still 8 gigs of RAM. There are still things I could do if I had a 16 gigs of RAM computer. But I got this one on purpose for a reason with 8 gigs.
Right. And I've actually heard of people being able to use apps like Logic, which is Apple's Pro music creation app, on the M1 Mac with 8 gigs of RAM. So I feel like, at least with the M1 line, RAM is... You should still consider how much memory you're going to need and how much you'll need in the future, but I don't know that you have to worry about it quite as much as you do if you're getting an Intel Mac or if you're getting a PC or something like that.
And there's a lot of computers out there, a lot of PC manufacturers like Lenovo, Asus, and others that build their laptops, especially, and even more on the desktops, where it's removable. So what you may start with is not necessarily what you have to have, but a lot of brands are now going where everything is put together on the chip so it's not upgradable. And of course they want you to do that. They want to do that so that you have to go buy a new computer.
Or at least spend more money on the one you're buying.
Right. So
so definitely RAM.
Mm-hmm.
You wanna make sure that you have enough RAM for what you need.
Hard drive space.
Yes, hard drive space.
And the term hard drive is a very loosely used term now, because we don't actually have the standard hard drives that we're used to. Back in the day, listen to me. A lot of people still have these drives. So the original kind of hard drive technology after tapes. Before anybody gets nitpicky, I want to specify after tapes. We had spinning drives where you could actually hear the little platters spinning inside the computer, and they made a lot of noise as data was being read. Now we have these little chips called SSDs, which
solid-state drives.
Yeah, solid-state drives that are basically like your computer's RAM. They make very little noise, and people still debate with me, but I still say SSDs make noise.
They do. I can hear my Mac SSD making noise. Now, to be fair, I have to put my ear basically by the Mac in order to hear it, and it's this really high pitched, I want to say it's almost like a beeping sound, but it's not quite like a beep. It's like I don't know how to describe it, but it's this high pitched electronic
It exists,
sort of sound.
People.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
My Dell Latitude that I use for work, it's sitting next to me whenever I'm doing other things, and whenever it decides to do the IT has sent the software update, get ready, and it's getting itself ready to do the update, it makes a lot of noise.
Definitely
Yeah.
hear it.
It's very interesting, because it's not fan noise, because I hear that separately, but it makes a very higher pitched noise, kind of and it sounds almost like hard drive clicks, like the same kind of patterns.
Sort of, but it's still kind of different.
It is, but
it's very hard to describe, but it's totally there. My Pixelbook did it. I think I've even heard my iPhone do it.
Yes,
but that's
your
really
iPhone
hard
will do it too.
Yes, I've heard that too.
So, all of that to say, your hard drive space is very important. And, a lot of computers will say, you can get this computer for very cheap at 128 gigs. Just say no. Kind of like drugs. Just say no. You do not want to just stick with 128 gigabytes of space. Your computer will load that up quickly with things that you probably don't need, but have a hard time getting rid of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? My opinion is not if you want to future-proof yourself.
Mm-hmm. And just for reference, a gig, when we say gigs, a little bit of a computer education lesson here. One letter, like the letter A, is 1 byte, which is made up of 8 bits. So a bit is basically you flipping your light switch on or off, 0 and 1. So think of the letter A as flipping your light switch on and off 8 times in a certain pattern. So we have bits and bytes. So if we have 128 gigabytes, we have 120. We have 1,000 bytes is a kilobyte. It's technically 1024, but we'll leave the semantics out of this right now. 1,000 kilobytes is a megabyte, so it's 1 million bytes, and then 1 billion bytes is a gigabyte. 1 trillion. Did I say gigabyte already?
Yes.
I'm confused.
Yes.
Is a terabyte. So we have all of these different measurements of space, and if like a lot of people will go out and say, "Oh, there's an 8 terabyte drive on Amazon. That's a nice drive. That's 8 trillion, bytes." And it may sound like that's a lot, but it's really not. I have a few games that are 80 gigabytes apiece. Those are some big programs, let me tell you. If you go and turn the setting to high quality audio in the Audible app, these books become huge. Like 19-hour long book becomes 1.19 gigabytes. That will fill up your iPhone really quick.
Right, and even Logic, if you download Logic, I don't remember how big the GarageBand stuff is, but if you download Logic and you download all the Apple sounds and stuff, that's about 60 gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the Apple stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start adding onto it, you're going to be using even more and more space. So you really want to consider what you're going to be doing with your computer and how much space you really need, because you don't want to run out of room.
What would you say would be like the minimum amount of space?
256.
Yeah, me personally, 256.
My
In fact-
preferred comfortable limit is 512.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Me in a good spot is 1 terabyte.
Mm-hmm.
The computer I'm recording on right now is 512.
And mine's a terabyte, and honestly, I haven't even filled up half the drive yet, but I also was considering what I would want to do with this machine in the future and how much I might have on it in a few years' time. So,
And as long as you get a computer with an SSD, you're going to be good. Because there might be ways for SSDs to fail, but typically it's going to take a lot to burn one out.
what is it, like the average lifespan of an SSD, I think, is about, 10 years?
10 years. Doing full read writes for the entire 10 years.
And, another thing that you can do, and it's something to consider, is when you are buying a computer and you do just realize that you haven't purchased enough hard drive space, you can, if you don't know how to do it, if you've got a friend that can do it for you, or a computer place that can do it for you. Now, granted, they'll probably charge you for it. You can replace the hard drive in your machine with a bigger drive if the machine allows you to do that. Macs don't. At least the newer Macs don't.
Right.
And there are also external hard drives, but you'd have to keep in mind that if you've got stuff you access on a daily basis sitting on an external drive, you're going to have to connect that drive to your machine. If you have a laptop, that can be a little less convenient than if it were just a desktop. So...
And the funny thing is, a lot of desktops, like the new iMac, are more like laptops or iPads than anything else these days. So,
yeah, but you're not going to carry an iMac and sit it on your lap all the time. Bring it, from room to room in your house most of the time.
Funny thing is, they do make backpacks to carry your iMacs to different places now.
Really?
I did not know that.
Yep.
Oh.
I mean, and as light as they're getting now, and as thin as they are, you could probably take it from room to room.
I worked with a person learning the iMac, and he said, I said, well, man, I wish I could see it because it's, it would be easier for me to work with it. And he was, a customer at my day job, and he said, no problem, I'll just bring it from home tomorrow. I'm like, how are you going to do that? Like, how are you not going to break it? He's like, oh, I got a rolling bag that will hold it just fine, and you could buy these apparently on Amazon.
That's insane.
Wow.
It also helped that he lived pretty close to where I worked, so But it was a 27-inch iMac. It was not a small machine.
Oh my goodness.
So he brought it in, we hooked it up, and we worked on it. But it's really interesting,
Wow. That's
Definitely.
dedication right there.
right? So that's the thing, you just have to, as far as hard drive space, it's very important to make sure you have enough, especially these days.
Right, because your operating system is going to take up a lot of that.
Yes.
The more software it comes with preloaded, the more it's going to take up.
Right.
And the less you're going to have to store your files that you actually want or need.
Let's talk about processors. So what is a processor? I'm kind of curious what y'all's takes on, what your take on a computer processor is.
My take on a computer processor is it's like the engine of a car. The beefier the processor, the bigger the car engine, or the faster the car engine, the faster your computer is going to be able to run. You put a faster engine in a car, you're going to get much faster 0 to 60 times. You put a faster CPU in a computer, it's going to boot a bit faster and run everything just faster. And I feel like this is a very basic analogy that I kind of think of when I think of what a processor is, and it kind of goes back to your analogy, Michael, earlier of gasoline versus diesel engines with CPU types. But
Lauren, what about you? What is your take on the whole processor thing, like how they work?
Yeah, I actually really like that analogy. It's kind of the way I think of it too.
Taylor, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a great analogy. Another thing that I was taught, I guess, at the computer science, when we did this unit, it's kind of like the brains of the computer, So it's kind of what they. Now, obviously, take that with a grain of salt, because that's what I said in college. But yeah, I like Jason's analogy actually a little bit more.
Well, it is very much like the brain, but all of the things that were mentioned apply, right?
Everything applies, yeah.
Your processor is where all of the thinking is done.
Exactly.
And there's even memory on the processor to hold things in place as it's working, called it has its own cache of memory. And your processor has what are called clock speeds. And they also have what are called cores. So the more cores you have, the faster the processor, or the more tasks the processor can perform at a certain speed. So obviously the higher the speed is great, but also the number of cores you have is also even better. So those are important things there.
right, and that goes back to engines again. You can have a Geo Metro, which is a really small car, right, with a 3-cylinder engine, and you can be going about 60 miles an hour down the road. But if you have a bigger car, which you could think of as more tasks for the CPU to load, to do, you're going to need a bigger, potentially more cores to get the same job done in the same amount of time, just as you would a bigger engine for a bigger vehicle to travel at the same speed.
Mm-hmm.
That was slightly
So-
confusing, but
So when you hear, this computer has an i3 and it's $200, that's an Intel chip, and it means it's on the lower end of the spectrum as far as how well it's going to work. Or Core M, or whatever they're called these days. Back in the day, they had the Atom processors. These are chips you want to stay away from.
Yep.
I don't know what the low end on the AMD spectrum are. I just haven't used them as
yeah,
much.
I don't know.
I just know my Ryzen 4900 is amazing in my gaming computer, but that's beside the point. So if you're looking at something that says it has an Intel processor, stick with anything i5 and greater, preferably i7. For two reasons. One, the i5 will be right in the middle of the pricing spectrum, and two, upgradability is going to be, or longevity is what I meant, will be better the higher power your processor is. And, there's like 9th generation i7, 10th generation i7. Higher the number, better the newer it is.
But also keep in mind it's going to use more power too. So if the amount of power draw that your computer takes is important to you, that's also something you're going to... In fact, I actually read an article talking about Intel's newest CPUs, and somebody was doing a test. It was a gaming machine, and they actually found the i5 was a better balance between power and speed compared to the i7 and the i9s. In fact, I think in some tasks they said the i7 and the i9s were a bit slower.
See, those articles you have to be very careful with.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is because then you have things like the Surface Book, which has an i7, but they scale it back to actually support the tablet. So, you have to look at each machine individually and say, okay, reading reviews are going to really help you out here.
Yep.
Articles will... The thing I've found about articles on a lot of these tech sites is they'll have all these claims and say these things, but it's important to kind of go between and get second opinions, because while they say these things, they say all kinds of stuff about the Mac, which really turn out to be not true. And the thing about processors and using a computer is each machine has to be looked at on an individual basis. How well does it perform certain tasks compared to others? Because, like Rene Ritchie likes to say, it's not all about the stats, the clock speeds, and the core counts. It's what does the processor do for the machine that it's in? So, those are things, for example, I just bought this gaming laptop from a friend. And I'll tell you what, I knew it was a good deal. But I still went and I watched at least 20 different YouTube videos, read at least 10 different articles just comparing it to other models of similar size and dimension and specs before I decided, yes, this was a good deal for the amount of money and for the specs that I was getting, especially since it had already been out for a year. So, your research is going to be important as well.
Definitely.
Do you guys have anything else y'all want to add about processors?
No.
So adamant, you're like, no, I'm done.
Sorry.
But no, honestly, the one thing I would say is if you have the ability to go and look at the machine, if you can, before you decide whether or not you want to buy it, I would do so.
Right.
For sure.
Because you're going to be able to determine what you think of its keyboard. I mean, if you do a lot of typing, the keyboard experience is going to be very important
It's so
to you.
important.
Butterfly keyboard.
No, that's the reason why I don't like my MacBook Pro, because it has that keyboard on it.
Right. But you'd be able to do things like determine if the keyboard has enough key travel, how far the key presses when you press it to type the characters. And just the style as well. Mm-hmm. So if you can, I would highly recommend trying to look at the machine at a store before you decide to buy it. Now, obviously reviews and things exist, so if that's not something you're able to do for one reason or another, then you can, of course, buy machines from places like Amazon and stuff, but...
I want to talk about two other very important topics before we wrap up today, and we're getting short on time, but
yeah.
One of the biggest and most important thing is look at the software and reviews of software that your machine has.
Yeah.
Because the way that a lot of these companies get you is you'll buy a cheap $200 machine, but it has Norton antivirus on it, or McAfee antivirus,
Or both of them.
or both. Or
I've seen that before.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of, we call it bloatware, that gets put on these machines, and that's how they're able to offer them at such cheap prices, because software manufacturers are putting this junk, and I'm using that term seriously, junk, on people's computers, and they're not getting the basic Windows experience that they should be promised.
Right.
Yeah, when I put the SSD drive into my my PC, I didn't even bother doing a disk dump or copying every piece of information off the original hard drive onto the new one. I just downloaded Windows 10 and just installed it fresh, and I am so glad I did that. I mean, I still have Dell drivers and stuff, of course, because Windows 10 downloaded them and everything, but
Exactly, yep.
it's just Windows.
I always recommend doing fresh installs whenever, because that way it gets rid of all that stuff. And trust me, the other day I was working with a client who had McAfee, whatever the heck you want to call that thing, Norton, and like 3 other things that came with that computer. And it was a pretty high-end computer, but they still throw them on there. So just do a fresh install. It will save you, if you can. If
you know how to.
Right.
If your machine even has a lot of bloatware, there are manufacturers that are more notorious for bloatware than others.
You're going to see a lot with Dell, HP, even Toshiba will have a lot of stuff on there. Of course, Microsoft is going to have the stock experience.
With a Mac, you're not going to have a lot of stuff other than Apple's apps that you can delete.
Samsung, I've heard, has some stuff. MSI is usually pretty good, and Asus is really good as well. And the last thing I want to bring up is also very important, is make sure the computer you're going to buy has the ports that you need.
Yes.
Yes.
That is very important, because if you need a flash drive or some kind of key that you need to use to unlock your computer, or to set up an unlock that's USB-A, you're not going to want to use a computer that, like a Mac, that just has all USB-C unless you have adapters. Right. So, and like this computer only has 2 ports. I can use one for power, one for something else. That's it. So, and there's a headphone jack, but that's one that you have to consider those things.
Exactly. For my workflow, it's generally not a problem. That being said, I do wish the M1 Mac had more ports, because the thing I don't like about dongles and adapters is you've got multiple points of failure there.
Like this computer that I have here has, my work computer has 2 or 3 USB-A ports. I don't believe it has any USB-C. It has a VGA adapter. Yes, I'm not kidding. And it has HDMI and Ethernet. and a headphone jack, and that's it.
Right. And my PC, I think it has three USB A, three USB 3A ports. Well, that was really hard to say. I think it has a USB 2.1A port. I think it has HDMI. It's got Ethernet. It has a CD drive, y'all.
Oh my god.
I was going to talk about that in a minute.
Uh,
I just wanted to point out, when I switched over from my Windows to my Mac, I went from having, all the USB-A ports, and then coming over to USB-C, and, all my wires and all the things that I had to plug in changed. And so, just keep that in mind and make sure you have your adapters and all that stuff. So.
Yep.
So, it's important to know, like, USB-A is the typical USB port. USB-C is kind of the up-and-coming thing, but it's still working on it. But a lot of newer drives and even monitors use USB-C. And there's also a new thing called Thunderbolt. If you have that, that's even better. It's like USB-C, but, like, supersized. Like, super
Or at least
powered.
supercharged.
Yeah. It has a lot more power and throughput than the standard USB-C, so you could do better hard drives or monitors with it, so it's really cool. The new iPad Pro even has a Thunderbolt port, which is really nice. So you get, a lot of cool things. The neat thing is a lot of the adapters and standards that Apple's creating is actually catching on, like that FireWire thing. Nobody even know. Does anybody over here even know what FireWire is?
I actually had a Mac that had FireWire. I think it was 800. Isn't
have
that used
never
for
heard of
like
it.
connecting cameras and stuff? Wasn't that Apple's?
never heard of it.
Wow.
Yep.
It was even on PCs for a little while, but just like HD DVD and every other failed product, it failed.
Yep.
Took a while though.
Yeah. Nobody put out devices for it, so it was there, but nobody used it. So, I mean, some devices had it, but it was not nearly as popular as USB.
I've never
Even-
seen a FireWire connector, but I have seen the port, of course.
Even though FireWire was much faster at the time than USB, so that you never know what's going to catch on.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all things to be, to take in mind, to think about when you go out and buy a computer. Do you guys have any final comments before we wrap up the topic today?
Nope. I think it was a really good discussion. So I'm set on my end.
I would say, basically just like we've been saying, do your research, because you can't necessarily make an informed decision as to what computer will best fit your needs judging by price alone.
Yeah, and check your resources. Make sure that you're looking at reputable resources. Everyone's got some kind of bias, in most cases. So just kind of check multiple places and check your facts, because everyone has their bread and butter, their thing that they want to sell. So just make sure that you're checking multiple areas and looking at all the specs and kind of thinking about what you might want in a computer and what you could use it for. So
And
that's all I have.
if there's a good salesperson at the store you're going to, they'll be able to help you make those decisions too, in theory, without trying to sell you on a specific type of computer. So watch out for that as well if you're going to go that route.
Yeah, watch out for sales employees at Best Buy that try to tell you the Blue Snowball is the best podcasting mic.
Or that.
I
that
fell
wasn't
into that trap.
Me too.
Ah.
Back in 2015 for me.
Yeah, luckily I never had that problem, but yeah. Because I was able to find my right resources beforehand, so I never had that problem.
Way to go.
Yep.
Yep. There's one thing that we never talked about, but we don't have time for. And
Yep.
Jason, I'm surprised you didn't bring this up.
GPUs?
No. That's something I would bring up. But
Yeah,
for a work computer, GPUs are kind of
that's true.
GPUs is a graphics processing unit, and if you're looking at GPUs, you probably already know what those do. So, but the one thing we did not talk about that I'm surprised Jason didn't bring up. Can anybody guess? Can anybody
Speakers?
guess? Yes.
You got headphones.
Oh yeah, those.
Yeah.
That's the thing that, like, part of why I didn't really bring it up is because, there are a lot of computers that have decent specs and not great speakers. So honestly, trying to find a computer that's got great speakers doesn't guarantee that it's going to have amazing specs and do what you need, even though, in my opinion, if you're paying thousands of dollars for a computer, it better have great speakers regardless.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we should do another podcast over audio in general. Best speakers.
Well,
or-
I think the next podcast or one later than that, we need to do the same show that we just did, but on entertainment level computers.
Yes, that would be cool.
I think that would be a good way to really geek out and talk about, like, if how to get the best computer for the price for what you're looking for.
Then I could talk about iPads. No, I'm kidding.
I could end the show in 2 words. Build it.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up today. So to end us off, Jason, what is your pick for this week, and where can people find you online?
So my pick for this week is a really awesome book that I have been reading. It's by Andy Weir, the same guy who wrote The Martian. And it's called Project Hail Mary. And it's about this guy who wakes up and realizes that he's being cared for by a computer, and then he realizes that he's on a ship, and he needs to find out what his purpose is and what happened to his crew. And the Audible version is read by Ray Porter, the same guy that read the Bobiverse books. And it's really, really good. So yeah, Project Hail Mary. Great book. Highly recommend. And as far as where people can find me, you can find me producing content for iAccessibility when I'm not reading that book. You can search for me on Twitter. You can search for me and find me at JDE91. You can email me at jason@iaccessibility.net. And if you find me on Clubhouse, feel free to say hi.
Yep. All right. Lauren, what is your pick for this week, and where can people find you online?
My pick is the Logitech Slim Combo case for the iPad. Took me long enough to get that out. I love the case. It's perfect. It has a really nice kickstand on the back. The keyboard's great. I love the feel of it. It's very quiet, and there's quite a bit of key travel. And as far as a Bluetooth keyboard, I think it does pretty well. No, it's not Bluetooth, is it? It's, crap, I can't think of the terminology.
It's a smart connector.
Smart connector, thank you. Yeah, so that is the best case ever. So that's my pick. And as far as where people can find me, you can find me producing content for iAccessibility. You can find me on Twitter at LaurenFlenner10, and you can find me on Instagram at Lauren_Flenner_10, and you can email me at LaurenFlenner@iAccessibility.net. Oh my god! Finally, I got that out.
All right, Taylor, what is your pick for this week, and where can people find you?
My pick is something called Auphonic, and for you podcast producers out there, you probably are going to love this, because basically what it does is it helps by basically making your audio better. It kind of helps like level it out and kind of helps, post-produce. Like, so after I edit, I put it through this Auphonic program, and it basically, helps level out stuff, takes out background noise. In fact, it did such a good job on my last podcast that I had some comments, because normally in these podcasts, you guys hear this refrigerator noise from my apartment. And it did such a good job. I kept getting comments for like, so where's your refrigerator noise? Did you move? That sounded awesome. How did you do that? And so Alphonic is awesome. And you get 2 free hours a month, I think. And the other thing is that it's very accessible. So I would highly recommend checking that out, because what I can do is I export the video from Reaper, and then I import it into Alphonic, and it generates me both a video and audio file. People can find me online producing content for iAccessibility. I'm also at Taylor's Tech Talks on my YouTube and my podcast. Since I mentioned my podcast, you may want to go check out that last episode so you can hear how good Alphonic sounds. And you can find me at Taylor_Arndt22. You can also email me at taylor@iaccessibility.net. And you can find me on Clubhouse. Feel free to say hi. And yeah, those are where people can find me.
All right. My pick for this week is on my head. And Jason is totally jealous because he wants some of these. I have the AirPods Max, and these are the sky blue model. And it is true, on Clubhouse and Discord they do sound very different from typical headphones. I just barely plug them in for a very short amount of time. They get a lot of charge, and they have a smart case that's actually growing on me. I don't mind it as much. They have very good design as far as how they're built, and they work really well. Audio sounds amazing through them, and you can use a cable to plug it into your computer through a headphone jack, and you listen to audio just as regular audio. I have not tried the surround sound stuff with it that you get with the Apple Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus content, so I want to check that out soon. But the controls for like the digital crown are amazing, and the transparency mode. The transparency mode is really, really where it's at, because I'm wearing these right now, and I can hear everything in my environment just as if I wasn't wearing headphones. And I could press a button and turn that off or turn on noise cancellation. I can hold the digital crown, turn on Siri, or change my volume. And it's just you hear like the little clicks like you do on the Apple Watch, and each side of the headphone has 3 microphones, so transparent hearing is just amazing. And I thought they kind of looked a little goofy whenever I saw them, but I see them in person, and I mean, I love them. I love how they fit. Now the one thing is their cushions make my ears itchy, but I just love how the cushions are magnetic. You can just detach them or attach them, clean them, whatever you need to do. And it's just a very nice headset. The only downside is they're $550. And the case does not cover the entire device. So, that's one downside. But you could charge them while in the case, and it makes them very easy to travel with. So highly recommend the AirPods Max.
And that audio cable you're talking about does not come with the headphones.
No, it does not. $30 extra from Apple. And make sure that you buy your warranty with the headphones, or else it's going to be a process to try to get your warranty. As for where people can find me, you can find me producing content for iAccessibility. You can email me at Mike Doise. It's MikeDoise at iAccessibility.net. I am Mike Doise on Twitter, Michael Doise on Facebook, and Michael Doise on Clubhouse. And I'm also Mike Doise on Instagram. So follow me at all those places. And I would love to chat with people about any of these topics we had today. So I really enjoyed this podcast. I think we went over a lot of great topics, so it was great. One thing I want to leave you all with is that we now have an iAccessibility Instagram we'll be posting things on, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the morning tech tips. Lauren has been doing great at putting those on the iAccessibility Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. So keep, follow those, and hopefully they will give you some great information. So thanks, Lauren, for doing that. And, we've got some great stuff coming up in the future. So it's, really cool doing this podcast with everybody here and everybody that's been on the stream and everything else. So I want to thank you all for all of that, and all of our listeners as well. So, our next episode is going to be episode 160, and it's exciting that, we're getting up there in the numbers. So it's great doing this show. So I hope people have found the content beneficial. So we'll see you next time. We'll provide another podcast, and we will do it all again in 2 weeks. So bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Well, I guess Taylor's not going to say bye.
Let me take us down real quick.
Do I need to recut my part since I messed up so many times?
No.
You know how many times I messed up my contact information? And I've been doing it for 5 years.
I was like, wait, what's my email again?
Right, I was like saying all my crap out of order and everything. Like, I was like, oh my god, what is wrong with me?
Oh my gosh, that was embarrassing.